Creating a brand in India today is not going to be there much longer. I think it's a very interesting opportunity today, and to create a brand, because most of India is basically SME driven, right? If you look at the largest footprint of any retail shops, there's not many. The largest retail shop, I know in the clothing line, Satyapal has 60 shops. Fab India, I think, has 100 shops. Future has less. They don't even have 100. There's no way they have 100. So, this is going to change over time. So today's social media, I believe, is as you just pointed out, a very cost-effective way to create a brand. Now, and for an SME, do you need to create a brand? Don't need to create a brand. I don't know the business. A B2B company may not want to create a brand.
Depending on the nature of it.
A B2C company may want to create a brand. Are you selling within your local area? Or are you selling pan-India? Are you selling global? Are you selling global? So I can't really effectively answer that question. It really depends on your business. So maybe if somebody in the audience would ask a specific question to their company, I'll be glad to answer and give advice.
Let's say for SME manufacturing shampoos.
Manufacturing shampoos.
Which is now using the electronic media very increasingly.
Yeah.
Now would it be
so would it be a consumer brand?
For such a company to switch over to
Are you directly selling to consumers or wholesale?
Well,
there's a big difference.
Through retail.
Through retail. So you're creating a consumer
I'm not selling,
brand.
I'm just asking, if it was a shampoo company, you find much of the time the TVs are, the limelight is on shampoos and toothpaste only. There's nothing else to see on TV but these two products.
So
would it be advisable for them to switch over to digital media?
I think everyone should switch over to digital media.
Sorry?
I think everyone should switch over to digital media. I mean, that's the business I'm in. And not because I'm in that, because, I wholeheartedly believe that's the future. So if you let's look at shampoos. Now, how many companies are concentrating on social media with shampoos? Probably not many. It's a way for you to stand out from the crowd easily, right? So if you're a small company, can you afford to put that ad in the newspaper or the hoardings or this and that? But if you spend the equivalent amount of 1 CR, 50 lakhs or 20 lakhs on social media, you'll be able to stand out. And what's great about social media is you can measure it, right? So when you put an ad in the newspaper, you don't know how many people looked at that ad. It's very difficult to measure. But if I put an ad on Google AdWords or make a YouTube video or use a Facebook page, I can see quickly how many people have gone to that page, how many people have clicked over, how many people may have bought. And I can measure effectively through analytics the effectiveness of social media. So unless you have an end-to-end strategy where you're actually measuring analytics and have an end result, so for example, which is your case, you can measure clearly how many people are buying the tickets online. So you know if it's working or not working. If it's working, you increase your budget. If it's not working, you change and try something else. But you probably wouldn't give up on the media, right?
Yeah. Having said that, hugely disagree with you on.
Great. All sorts of issues.
Especially if you're talking about something like shampoos or whichever. If it's the Indian context and the Indian market, first of all, you would define whether it's for a 13 to 18-year-old or if it's whether the shampoo is for dandruff or it's for strong hair, whatever the positioning might be. Because especially the digital thing, and I'm talking about an SME, and let's say you started a brand new thing only for Chandigarh, forget even national scale. The digital budgets that the big FMCGs, which is the BMG and HLLs in the space will have, will far outweigh what your digital budgets would be. So for them it's not about selling the product, but trying to tell them that Sunsilk is about XYZ, Head and Shoulders is about ABC, trying to get the positioning right. From my experience, it will be a part of an overall marketing strategy. So if the question being, can you switch over? I don't think you can switch over to digital completely. There will be more emphasis on digital. But again, it would base, unfortunately the product is such, which is sold. I don't see, for example, the main thing is people buying shampoos online anytime soon, because it's a 75 rupee or 100 rupee product.
Well, so it depends on the product.
Yeah.
I don't know the product.
Yeah.
I don't know the positioning, right? So it depends on the positioning in the product.
Standard-wise, I'm taking an example of either an SME does something that's extremely a very luxury 700 rupees kind of product which does XYZ, or it could be something that's a bit mass market. So as one thing Gautam said is, all of this strategy really boils down to the product, whether it's 10 rupee or 10 lakh or whatever it might be. But in terms of consumer product in India at this point of time, while digital is important, I think it will remain a smaller part of the mix, especially in a product that is very retail oriented, because the main decision making that happens is at a retail level. is when you're at the store, walking through a supermarket, depending on the packaging, what is the communication right then and there, and you're competing with the other products. But a lot of companies have managed to do that really well, which is your boutique, even Body Shop coming into India for that matter. These are companies who have done well at a retail level. They don't really have a massive online strategy yet. So I think it will be a part of a mix. But most products in India, eventually the time will come when it can afford to be all digital. But in terms of a consumer product, I'm a bit old school. I think you'll always need offline advertising and POS advertising for it to succeed.
I think
a product or something, it gets very distinct.
If you consider that's what I'm saying. If you consider cybersecurity and you consider not SME, you consider about a company which is a year, 2 years back, like it's old, then what do you suggest? What exactly
you use Google Ads?
Yeah.
How much do you spend on Google Ads? I think you might have spent too much on Facebook. We spent 45,000 rupees. How do you target on Facebook who's interested in cybersecurity?
I actually have a great example for this. Last week I was having coffee with the CEO of a ticketing company, and one of the interesting data that he threw back at me is they were studying their consumers. And there was one person, in fact, who was from Punjab. They were studying on how he buys tickets. And he figured that every time he bought 4 or 5 tickets, he would have the ticket sent to his house. And every time he bought 2 tickets, he would have it sent to his office. So their interpretation of that was, this is where he's possibly going with the secretary or someone else. And there's a particular kind of movies he would watch for the 2 tickets and something else for 2 tickets. And both of us were data nerds, so we find this really interesting in terms of, now this is the kind of data which is obviously it's a bit creepy in terms of, this is an inference you're making out of something that's ticket purchase. There's nothing else we know about this consumer. But now when you talk about your business specifically, if this is the kind of data that, let's say, a backend would throw in terms of, based on this, that people who are searching for tickets for a particular movie, who is only buying 2 tickets, that's where you focus your digital ads on. So what I'm trying to get at is, the thing about digital is, you can make it as focused as possible. So to try and understand who would possibly be the client, in this case, a suspicious spouse. So where would the suspicious spouse be if he or she is online? They are not going to be, let's say, if these are the 10 maybe local language websites they might be on or somewhere else. But to really try and get into their head, the good thing is none of this will cost any money to research it. And digital doesn't discriminate in that sense. So like the entry barrier for the newspaper thing would have been 20,000. Like you, many other people would have bought an ad for say 21,000 rupees and they might have not got a response. And the tweaking that you can do with digital, unfortunately I think in fact I'll also blame Google and Facebook, all of them for a bit in terms of the education that's happened about how to spend on digital. I don't think that's really penetrated to every possible level that it should have. Because I can of course sit and 23-year-old kids in my office sit and make an entire digital plan because they're completely clued on how this thing works. But a lot of the offline business is for them to really understand and plan this. And you can't really afford an agency to plan this way. Yeah. Because in that also comes at again, bit of an entry barrier. But as much of this information can be online on how to kind of take specific case studies, almost about 200-300 case studies, especially centric to India, and say how you could do this. I think that could make the game a bit more interesting. Because there is value in digital, but how to do it is the bigger question.
So, I was faced with this challenge about 3 years ago, which is if you use Google AdWords, it's a very difficult product to actually use, and it's very difficult to get help. So about 2 years ago, I set up a certified agency program. So we have agencies that we've trained. Google actually has gone in and trained them that can help you manage and run your accounts so you don't have to. So I can give you some more information about that, and they can help you plan your whole strategy and work very closely with you. And they charge a very reasonable fee, usually about 10% of whatever you spend on AdWords. If you spend 20,000 rupees, they'll charge you 2,000 rupees and manage everything for you in a way that you wouldn't be able to do because you'd be learning the process. I think for something like this, for your type of product, I think, look at everything you need a mix. You need to try different things, and something will hit, something won't hit, right? I mean, you can use the biggest advertising network in India actually today is not newspaper for SME, it's not Google, it's actually SMS. SMS blasting is probably the biggest way. It's the most non-effective but effective way because you pay 1 or 2 paise or 3 paise per SMS, and you spend 20,000 rupees, you can send to so many people, so many SMSs, so it's mass market. And you know, I think everybody, you have to try and see what works for you. You can't go in blindfolded, you should try everything. I just fundamentally believe that in terms of experimentation, digital and social is the most effective cost way of experimenting. For the relatively low amount of money, I don't know how, I'm not really familiar with how Facebook ads technically works. I assume you only pay when someone clicks on your ad.
Yeah, right.
So obviously, if you paid 45,000 rupees, a lot of people must have clicked on your ad. So if they clicked on your ad, what happened after that? Once you have that customer, they've come to your website, wherever they came, why weren't you able to capture more? I don't know. Maybe you can blame Facebook. Maybe it's because your website wasn't designed properly. Maybe the ad wasn't written properly. People came expected something else. I don't know. There's so many different fundamental factors, but a lot of people must have clicked on your ad if you spent that much money. How many people read your newspaper or newspaper advertisement? I don't know. So maybe something was broken there. And maybe it's a lack of inexperience, sort of as Vijay is saying, that you didn't know how to use effectively, you know, the online advertising to close the customer in the ad. So I don't know. But I can give you at the end of the talk, I can give you some agencies that you can call that.
See, the other part that I can add on to what Gautam and Vijay is saying, that you need to remember that we're a migrating generation. You know, unlike what's happened in the West, that we've seen this internet, 20 years of internet. So we've gone from point A to point B, and in India we're still a migrating generation. So if you really look at age to 16 today, we are the early adopters of streaming media, whichever way, you know, social is a part of that, and communication and content is a part of that. When you look at a 45 plus, you will pretty much find them very specific about what they want to do. But between the 16 to 40 is where most of the migration is happening. This is where Indian stories have emerged in a big way, whether it's telecom or in whichever way you might want to look at it. And I think the thing that I can add to you very specifically, as if I think like an entrepreneur, is you are 80-20 today. You are 80% conventional model for communication, 20% digital. Over the next 5 years, you're going to be a 50-50, 60-40. That's the way you want to start looking at it. In terms of your spend, wherever you're doing your spend, to what Gautam said, you need to start looking at converting that. So you maybe today use 20% of that communication as releasing the cost out of your P&L, which would have been press kit, which would have been a website, which would have been delivery of certain goods, which were happening physically. You will move them digitally. You would take them on, probably take it to the cloud, probably go to just build a bazaar kind of model, probably take your web development costs and all that out. That will start showing efficiency within your P&L. And the second part is that aggregation of the customer. You can point yourself to certain specific communications where your audiences are sitting, which is possible in a digital world. It is today possible in print, because print is penetrating that much. But you also see that print is moving digital as well. Your spend is actually moving, 30% of your advertising revenue is moving digitally.
Product that is shampoo, you all guys mentioned Flipkart and everything. Even in spite of the fact that there is immense penetration of digital media, there is immense, there's immense rise in the usage of internet and everything. Why is it that still today, in spite of all these alarming figures, if you really have to create a brand out of maybe a shampoo or a consumer product, you still are required to have an ad on TV? One thing. Flipkart was not known to us 2 years back. It got known to us by those proportions only after it began surfacing on TV. Right. We as an SME, I run a t-shirt company, I cannot probably afford a Ranbir Kapoor wearing my t-shirt and I put his picture online and I make a brand out of it online. Okay, neither do I afford the conventional method of maybe going by trades or whatever, or TV for that matter. How exactly do we build brand equity within the digital space, in the consumer product segment, within our own, within the budget constraints we have and everything? TV, why is TV still so important for building brand equity?
Can I answer your question quickly?
Yeah.
You said 60 seconds, right?
60 seconds.
Because we are a migrating generation. That's the word that I gave. We are a migrating generation and migrating media as well. We are still a very hooked on television audience. We are not massive radio market, we are massive radio. So these communication tools, maybe in the next 3 to 4 years, we may not need it. I give you a very simple example. When I started my career at Chandigarh, how to make it interesting. This guy came to me with Switcho, a t-shirt brand. This is the year 96. And we presented him massive plans about how to launch Switcho t-shirt brand in India. And you know what he came back to me and told me? He said, all your plans are damn good in terms of marketing, and you have got a TV channel and all of that, you promote it. But you know what I would want to do? I would want to build a snow mountain in Mumbai next to Mud Island. And the snow can move into the water, so there will be no problem. But the second thing that will happen is that there will be millions of people who never seen snow in their life. Now that is how effectively you create something very simple, very unique, but has that thread of communication which widely grows. I personally believe that no amount of media, no media channel has ever promoted itself to be visible to you. Please think about it. You never see a Startup ad. You never see a radio ad. You never see brands advertising. Only consumer brands advertise to a certain point. As an SME today, you don't need that. As long as you're clear about what your vision is, how you need to reach your certain goals, and you are a migrating generation. You've got to get there. There are certain things you cannot do. So don't go to national channel, go to cable channel. Don't go to multiple of those things which are high cost to you, but go to the aggregated audience.
Sir, but shampoo ad aired on a local Chandigarh-based TV and shampoo ad aired on Sony TV. The brand equity generated out between the two would be like 1 and 100.
It will be, but I'm saying those are the different stages of the business plan. So if you're an SME, and if you're an SME and you need to run a bootstrap operation, you've got to look at how effectively you're going to generate value from the consumer, which is what a digital media allows you to do. See, a one bit more hoarding and what we see first and only give you back many eyeballs.
What is your t-shirt company? What is it?
So we are actually, I mean, it's the retail model about it is that we are building t-shirts around colleges. I mean, there is one specific college. We build designs around that college itself and sell it to students. I mean, it makes sense to only to the students who are part of that college. So this is a new space.
I mean, this business is not made for digital. I don't know what business is.
No. I am not talking in context with my business, but in generally, how do I build enough brand equity?
Well, I think there's two things. One is, let me just answer very quickly. One is, the number of people online today in India is very small. The number of people on television is much larger. Right? So that's one. Second is, you know, in order to build a brand, you have to, unfortunately, spend some type of money or have some type of creative angle. Now, how many people in this room have heard of Ink Fruit? Have anyone heard of Ink Fruit? Okay. They built a brand. I've never seen them spend any money on television. I've never seen them spend any money on this thing. It's a 3-year-old company. They're out of college. I met them. Keshav, I forget his name, Dalal or something. Right? He built a company. That's an example of a t-shirt company targeted towards college students. So I think, you know, they've done it. It's an example. So saying it can't be done, I can't believe actually how many people have heard of that company. I'm actually surprised. I expected 2 hands.
One more company, Myntra. Is it the same?
Well, Myntra later on they're like they're like Flipkart because now they spend money on television, but Ink Fruit has never spent any money on us. Right?
It boils down to the idea of.
Just want to know the bifurcation of the mediums, as in Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus. So we have 3 different mediums. So who do we invest more in?
Unbiased answer. And really an answer that you have to experiment with all of them and see what works best for you. I mean, that's really the answer, because I don't know enough about, you know, what you're doing, where your audience is, and this and that, but I would say experiment.
General would be experiment.
See,
you have to experiment with everything and see what works.
Can I answer your question in a different way? Like, it depends on the product and the kind of audience you're trying to attract. Because when you look at Twitter, the communication on Twitter is very different from the communication or social engagement that you do on Facebook. To all platforms attract a different kind of audience. If you are present in all of them, you will also find that your communication behavior is very different in each one of them. If I'm on LinkedIn, I'm very professional. If I'm on Facebook, I'm probably trying to do a lot of my network communication share. if I'm on Twitter, I probably might be doing some profile building and also trying to, kind of push some kind of thought leadership or push some messages out. Well, YouTube is a platform for streaming video, right? So if I would use YouTube as a platform, what I would do is that I'd probably self-shoot myself and push that out there. So there are different mediums, there are different levels of communication, and there are different audiences. It depends on your product.
How does one decide on the funds?
It depends on your product. One of the answers that I can give you is there are a lot of social media companies which help you design your social campaign.
So again, I need to shut up. I'm looking for a very...
when you're saying what kind of funds, right? If you look in a conventional way, you would have said advertising in a conventional world. How many press ads, poster, outdoor hoarding, TV commercial, radio, whatever, right? So you would have come up with a budget. In digital media, you got to look in the same way, but it's far more effective and far more reachable. The difference is that you reach more number of people in 1/4 of the spend. But you bring back those customers back into your interface and your domain to create an engagement point. That is the difference. You can
Very
track.
specific. The good thing about Twitter is there is no opportunity to invest except time. You can't really do advertising. So Twitter is something you have to invest time and build, and it's very effective depending on what you're doing. In my business, there is a festival I do called NH7, which is mainly for hipster Bombay kind of an audience. We trended worldwide on Twitter for 3 days of the festival. I